Awesome. Well, hey everyone, welcome to XPC Talks. Really exciting to have our first 2026 talk with Misha. He is going to be talking about some really cool things related to chief technology officers and his experience. So, Misha, you're going to do your own intro. I'll just hand it over to you. I think just kind of engagement rules, I would say if you have any questions, put them in the chat as Misha's talking, and I'll be able to MC, and I'll probably call on you to say it out loud for everyone. And unless Misha, you want to, I would say let's save questions till the end instead of interrupting. It'll make for a better flow. But let's get started. I'm excited to hear the talk myself, actually. So take it away, man.
Sounds good. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Awesome. Let me just rearranging. So hi, I'm Misha. For those who don't know me, I've been in software engineering over 20 years now, building everything from satellites to healthcare APIs. Currently co-founder of XPC with Manulis. People have described me as the art of the possible person. Nice for my ego. I like sharing that because I think it sets kind of a good idea for everybody around that. And I did everything from running small teams, a couple of folks at a startup, to running engineering teams over 20 people at large multinationals. Give you a little bit more in a second, but I wanted to share some of the questions and feedback we got from the folks who signed up. Some interesting stuff in here. I don't promise we'll answer all of them, but I will touch on some of them. Just not in the way you might like it. But we'll find out. Throw questions in the chat and throw virtual tomatoes in the chat too. We'll see how it goes. So a little bit more of a background about me. I started my career in embedded systems. These are some of the things I've worked on. Like I mentioned, I wrote code that's on satellites. I think one is still up and flying. Worked on drones, all kinds of wired and wireless networking. Built consumer electronics as well. So this one I'm particularly proud of. We raised about $90,000 on Kickstarter in 2012, which is a pretty big deal back then. We shipped a whole bunch of units. Think about it as Nest device, but for making beer. And then I kind of got bored making LEDs blink. So went into regular software development. Worked for a big evil bank for a bit, working out of UK. Joined a startup as their CTO. We put cameras into stadiums, took photos during the game of the fans, and then when the end of the game, you put in your seat number. You get photos of you and your friends celebrating or commiserating, depending on the game. Started another sensor company because I can't help myself, obviously. That collection of wires and boxes on the floor, that's my house. I was building all the sensors by hand. It was fun, stressful, but a lot of fun. Did some other things. I helped Solace Mammography go from a few locations to close to 100 by the time I left. That was very interesting, exciting work for me. And then managed to work for number 2 insurance company in the world. This is a photo of close enough to their offices in Zurich. It is as this pretty. That is not a filter. Had a lot of fun being there. Interesting work. Helped co-found a company in healthcare space. Another one. This is working on bringing lifestyle medicine changes to providers, trying to make up for all the sins I've made in working in the finance world. And more recently, I've joined Polyus last year. I've been building XPC and helping clinicians be better. So wanted to give you just a taste of all the things that I've done throughout my career and the range of companies I worked at, just to kind of give you an idea of the patterns I've seen over and over. And that's what this talk is based on. So what are we talking about today? So first, what a CTO actually is. Most people get this wrong. Second, why hiring technical help at idea stage just burns money, doesn't really give you anything. Third, what to do instead. Kind of the important one, right? So how many of you have said this or thought this, wanted to think that. Um, what does that actually mean to you? Even when you say it to yourself or when you hear it, depending on the answers, it ends up doing very different things. And that answer changes what we're talking about and how we're thinking about it. So, what is a CTO? CTO is a title, it's not a job description. CTO means very different things depending on where you are in your startup journey. If you're just starting out, are you pre-seed? Do you have idea stage? Do you have some money that you raised? Do you have your own money that you're trying to invest and spend on this? And as your company evolves, as your business grows, the role shifts based on what you as a business need. The important thing that I want to emphasize for everybody at the idea stage, what are you looking for from a CTO? You generally are not looking for a CTO. You're looking for usually a coder to build what's in your head. That's an important one to keep in mind as we're talking through this. Having that concept of, I just need somebody to help me build what I'm imagining to be. And downsides of that and the issues with that and the trade-offs you're making when you focus just on that out of the gate. So what does a CTO role mean at each different stages? It's just initial stages. It seems like every month what a seed or series A really means and how much money you get, how many people you're expected to have changes. Obviously, this is geared more towards VC-backed companies, but should give you an idea in terms of the size of the company and the goals you're trying to achieve. So at an idea, you're validating, you're not coding, right? Like, is my idea good? Can I find people who have the same problem? Are they willing to give me money for it? Are they solving it right now? Are they even aware they have a problem? We'll get a little bit into that conversation later on in the show, as they say. The seed is you have something, right? You have a prototype. You have some customer release potentially. You're trying to close some folks, get money coming in the door. And and I put it in quotes here specifically, a CTO does is they're the coder, they're building the MVP. Their job is to get you something that gets you across the finish line to get customers in the door so you can start learning from customers. Um, the important part I want to pause here on the seed side is you need someone who can code. It could be offshore. You could be trading favors with people. Could be a co-founder. But a co-founder isn't just a coder, they're a partner. And you want to think about it from that perspective because otherwise it changes the dynamic. The number one reason startups die is not lack of funding, it's co-founder dynamics and co-founders breaking up. That hasn't really changed in the last 20 years, it seems like, from all the research out there. And if we're talking about a co-founder, do you really want a co-founder? Like, that's not a light step to take. So you want to be thinking through that. I'm going to glance quickly through some of these. The other last two, which is Series A, you have a team, you're looking for a manager. They're still coding, the CTO, right? But their job is not just to ship code, but also to make sure that the other engineers on the team are doing what they need to be doing. They're shipping code as well. And the code that they're shipping drives the business forward and not just writing code to write code or playing around with whatever it is they find interesting. Series B is a bit different now. Here, the CTO can take on different kinds of, let's call them personas. Usually, you tend to have a VP of engineering at this stage. The job of a VP of engineering is to care and feeding of all the engineers, basically. What are the processes, hiring, retention, dealing with problem people, etc. The CTO at that point is much more free to take on a strategic role of, do they help with sales? Do they start to figure out what the R&D needs to be to close the next round? Do they focus on just relaxing because they're burnt out and you want to keep them for some reason? There's lots of different scenarios here. There's not right or wrong. It depends on your situation. So why smart people make this mistake? You're all highly educated. From the folks that I do know, you come from healthcare space. You got to be smart to come from healthcare space. But these are the three reasons that I keep seeing over and over. And that's what I keep hearing from folks in my conversations, when I have like fractional CTO conversations, etc. Building feels like progress. You have something tangible. And therefore, you focus on building. And that usually costs money. It costs a lot of time. Talking to customers is slower. A, you got to find them. B, you got to convince them to get on the phone with you. And then you got to ask them the right questions where you're not pitching your idea, but you actually try to figure out what's their problem, et cetera, validating what you need to be doing. And you can often end up just building the wrong thing, which means you wasted a lot of time, potentially a lot of money on something that you should be doing something else. Right? It's an expensive distraction. So I have a few stories to share. The first one, there's a founder I know, they spent over 100K on an offshore team to build an EHR. This is during COVID, EHRs were hot, everybody seemed to be building an EHR. One problem, none of the features worked. I don't mean like worked poorly, as in not worked, they were never built. The problem wasn't the offshore team, however. Doing due diligence on their EHR, what quickly became obvious is, okay, they built, for example, they built a scheduling software, they built a calendar. But the calendar doesn't sync with, say, Google or anything else where you'd have it on your phone. If you're a small practice, you're one or two providers trying to manage your schedule and make sure you can see patients. There was no like BAA built into it to deal with third-party services like, say, Google. There's a bunch of other things where the folks who built it made assumptions around what is a calendar based on non-healthcare context. They're not healthcare people, they're developers. They were not told what they needed to do. They didn't know what to ask for because they don't know what the problems are in healthcare. And that's not the conversations that were had. So because the founder didn't know what to ask for on the technical side, couldn't specify what done looked like, made a lot of assumptions, they wasted $100,000 on a problem. They built the wrong thing. Right? Hiring doesn't solve a clarity problem. There was a complete lack of clarity across the board. Here's another problem that another conversation I often find myself in. We have this technology problem, or I have this problem where I need this tech. Insert whatever tech is, doesn't really matter. Could be AI, could be, who knows, big data, mobile, doesn't matter. Technology problems don't exist. Like if you take nothing else away from this presentation, this is it. Technology problems do not exist. You solve technology problems by throwing money at them. Because if you have an actual technology problem, chances are you have customers, you have money coming in, and you can spend the money to either hire an expert because your search is broken. Go find a search expert. There's lots of them. Or the website is too slow. Okay. Buy a bigger server. They don't cost that much nowadays. You can buy better tools. You can buy expertise. On the business problem side, you can't do the same thing, right? Because you have to put in the effort. You have to know what you're choosing for. You have to have insights. You have to take some risk to figure out what it is that you're building and why and how does it line up. And do you have clarity? That word will keep coming up over and over, by the way, on what it is that you're trying to achieve, what problem you're trying to solve. Not the how, but the what and the why. We'll come back to the what and the why in a minute. So the clarity problem. You think you need a CTO to build it before you can sell it. I have conversations like this almost weekly, it feels like. You don't know what to build yet. That's not a technology problem. If you don't know what to build yet, the solution is not to go get an engineer to help you build the thing, because that's really expensive and really time consuming. What customers will pay for is the hard thing to figure out. And that takes time and energy and effort, because writing code, especially with today's tools, is really fast. Knowing what to build is really hard. So you have to go talk to customers to know what it is that you need to build. So what does that look like? These are some of the questions that I've always tried to answer myself. And I've often asked when speaking with and working with product managers at larger companies. Having this gives everybody common context, common set of assumptions. Everybody understands the direction that they're rowing into. And people can make suggestions and come up with ideas to potentially take shortcuts or get there cheaper or faster or in different ways than you were expecting. But you are the experts. You're the ones who have to start here in order to have the right conversations, defining that problem. I'll give you another story. Worked for this startup, Series B startup. We spent $1 million budget. 5 developers, took them a year to build accounting and tax integration. At the end of the year, tell me if you've heard the story before. It's unusable. It's over-engineered. Can't really maintain it because who the heck knows what's going on in there? They way overthought it. And it still doesn't work. So wasted a whole year, wasted $1 million instead of just use a vendor off the shelf. Go find a vendor. They cost about $500 a month. It took 2 weeks to integrate, but we're done. Somebody else was assuming risk for making sure the accounting and the tax situation was actually accurate and reported out to the customers of this company. This happens really often. I can't stress that enough. The problem is the people, the finance department who was asking for this integration, for this capability, they did not know what to do, what to ask for. They asked, can you build this for me? It wasn't a conversation. I have this problem. Let's figure out how do we solve this problem together. This was one of the questions that somebody submitted. How do you choose between these three, especially today? Depending where you are in the journey, that they can't stress that part enough. Can you describe the problem clearly? Have you talked to customers? Can you share some of that? Do you have clear understanding of what success looks like in order for you to sign a customer to get money coming in the door? Are you still exploring the idea? Are you testing demand? Do you really need to build something to test demand and explore an idea and validate what that looks like? Often no. If you do, vibe coding is a pretty easy answer. When do you need to hire a CTO? We'll get to that in a minute. But you want to think about hiring a CTO, getting a technical co-founder, or utilizing a third-party development shop, kind of in the same bucket. There's different trade-offs. I'll cover them in a minute. But something to think through. Got one more story to share. 2015, so helping this founder, it's a physician, I believe he's an emergency physician, went to some of the top medical schools, top schools period, had connections with VCs, trying to raise money. This is functional health. Think like online concierge healthcare delivered at async. He spent a lot of his own money on a couple of developers. I was one of the people helping him. He was spending easily $100 an hour at that time per developer trying to build it. Took several months to get a really, really rudimentary prototype where a consumer could log in and like see their basically documents. He only was able to get 3 paying subscribers. I was helping him on and off for a year and a half. The other engineer that I'm aware of was helping him for another year past that. So imagine 10, 20 hours a week of $100 an hour and still failed. Now, too early at that time. Didn't really validate the demand. It's an expensive service back then. Wasn't that easy to integrate with everybody. But made an interesting sunk cost fallacy here. That code is worth something and it's important to build it, except code is disposable. The research suggests that on average, a startup going from just starting to build something to Series B will rewrite their application 3 times from scratch. And so even twice, it's still a lot of code that's getting thrown away, getting rewritten. Code doesn't matter. Code doesn't cost anything. Understanding what to build is the really, really hard part. Knowing whether or not you built it correctly, the way you intended it, is the other hard part. That has always been the case and will continue to be the case. So these are some of the things, knowing the market, knowing so you're not wasting your time and money, that's really important. So how do you do that? For those who have never seen this, not aware of this book, just go buy the book. It's like 10, bucks or something like that. It's I want to say it's around 200 pages. You'll read it in a day. You'll not want to put it down. It's incredibly well written. There's a lot of examples. There's sample scripts you can follow, sample emails you can send. It shows you exactly how to think through finding out what it is that you need to build and validating whether or not your potential customers have that problem. So you're not wasting your time and your money, and not trying to hire a CTO or hire a technology person or find a co-founder and deal with the interpersonal issues that can potentially arise in that situation, especially if you're not making progress, especially when there's frustration. You can use LLMs as thinking partners. That hasn't been available until last year, realistically. They weren't really good enough until last year, where you can open up ChatGPT and Claude, pressure test your problem definition. You can simulate your customer objections. You can get it to poke holes in your thesis. You can draft interview questions, practice interviewing. You're not building, you're thinking. It's free. You're getting a highly paid consultant for free with these systems because all of the information has been encoded in these LLMs. So before you think about, do I really want a technology partner? Who do I hire? How do I hire them? What does it look like? Go through these exercises. Maybe it takes you a few hours, but you save yourself so much pain and so much money by doing that upfront. And again, clarity. This was another question that was submitted. Um, I get this almost every week as well. I think this is common for everybody. We're all trying to figure it out. Doesn't matter how experienced as a developer or not you may be. Maybe like 5 people in the world who don't feel that way, but I don't believe it because one week you're on top of the world, you shipping features left, right, and center, and the next week you managed to drop the entire production database and lost all the production data. Whoops. Hopefully you had backups. Um, it's for those of you who come from healthcare background, medical background, the engineering domain is not that different. You take a problem, you break it down into smaller steps. You don't know how? Ask ChatGPT, ask Claude. I do that myself all the time. I was doing that right before we started this presentation, actually working on a completely different problem with a technology stack I'm not familiar with, but looking at it as an opportunity for us. So use AI to help validate each step, make a plan, have it generate the plan, read the plan, ask it questions if you don't know something, have it update the plan. Doesn't hurt to keep notes, like have it keep a running diary in a file, review it, read it. You can't offload your thinking to the LLM. You still have to use your thinking. But don't overcomplicate it. Here's some simple prompts you can try. These are really easy. Change them to what you like. Don't overthink it. You can always tell it, hey, this is what I'm interested in. Help me come up with a good prompt. It'll give you a prompt, and then you can iterate on it. So again, don't overthink it, one step at a time. Try to break down the problem. Try to come up with a plan. Try to come up with success criteria at the end of the plan. Claude is actually pretty good about doing that. Sometimes you have to ask them, one of these LLMs, to do it for you. So let's say you went through that. You want to explore your idea. You want to build a prototype. Before you go hire a CTO, before you go try to look for a technical co-founder, just build a prototype yourself. It's never been easier. And this is the hardest it's going to ever be today. Tomorrow is going to be easier than today because these tools are constantly improving. These are some of the ones I pulled, I think, last week. I haven't checked what they are this week, which one's better or not. I do want to focus everybody on the quote. So if you're not familiar, Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, part of the PayPal mafia. This is something he said quite a while ago. I'm going to say early to mid 20 teens. It's still true. It has always been true. For those of you who work in healthcare, how many of you have opened up Epic? Like, how are Epic not embarrassed by the UI and UX that they have? It's a huge company, right? That's pretty common across the board. The only differentiator for that is if you're building for consumers, and that's a bit of a different ballgame. But even there, you may be embarrassed by it, but your bar is so much higher than everybody else's I don't think folks truly realize the difference between that. So when are you ready for technical help? These are the check marks you want. And talk to a bunch of customers. Some people recommend like 20 plus, some recommend 5. I've seen as high as 100. When you start hearing the same answer over and over again, that's enough. You validated it. Been in the industry, it might be a lot, might not be a lot. You want to understand how they're solving it today, because that tells you what the opportunity is. If your vision is the same as what they're doing today, how are you going to convince somebody to buy your solution? So, what are your options? We talked about these before, but find a co founder. I'm not going to cover how to do that or what it means. It's a whole lot of conversation. But a co founder generally means a partner, right? They're going to share risk, they're going to share equity, they're going to share decision making. That's a co founder. You can get an employee. Usually at that point, you have to have some money to pay the employee. You can try to offer them just equity, but think about incentives and priorities. If something better comes up, why the heck would they keep working for you if they have a chance to have founder equity or actual cash and a little bit of equity, independent of what the media says in terms of how hard it is for engineers to find a job? The kind of engineer you want, they have options. That's just the reality. Most of those options are going to be in the, I don't know, 200 plus K range is what they're going to get paid. Somebody who's senior enough, experienced enough, knows what they're doing, that you do not have to manage, that you can trust to deliver, even if they're an employee. Getting a contractor agency, you need cash. Like, this is not cheap. If they are willing to work with you on equity, keep in mind somebody can come in, offer them cash, and all of a sudden your project is on the back burner. That one developer that they had was super junior, fresh out of school, and they're using you to train that developer up. Ask me how I know. I've been there. I've worked at these companies, at these consultancies. That's exactly how it's done. Well, the second they have somebody who was willing to pay them cash for that body, your stuff goes in the back burner. Just how it is. But also, you have to really know what you're asking for. You have to have clarity, not on just what you want delivered, but what does it mean to have it done? Otherwise, you're going to keep getting charged for hours. Not because somebody's evil, but that's just how the game is. So let's say you want to hire a CTO or a fractional CTO. These are the questions you want to ask. The first one tells you they know how to say no, not just someone who's eager to just jump in and write code, but you want someone who you can have a conversation, a discussion with. The second one is about making decisions together. So can they explain technical jargon so you can understand the trade-offs and be part of the decision making? The third one is about self-awareness. This one's pretty common, but you want someone who has enough experience that they've picked up enough lessons so that you're not paying for them to learn on your dime. The fourth one is how do they come in as a partner? Do they know how to deliver? Do they know when they're done so they can keep going? Either move on to the next project because your engagement is done, or they know when to say, this thing is done, let's go build the next priority thing. And the last one is about not working in a vacuum, right? You are going to be working together on something. So what does that partnership look like? What is it going to be like to work together? Doesn't have to be a giant conversation. So on the flip side, how do you work better with the CTO? You focus on the problem, not just a feature. I want a dashboard as a feature request. Our team wastes 2 hours a day finding this information is a problem they can solve because they can ask you a bunch of questions about it. Maybe they have a better idea than a dashboard because they've seen other things. Maybe they can automate the entire problem away for you so you don't have to think about it. Nothing trains a CTO faster than finding out about a deadline or some feature commitment after it's already been made. They're the ones who have to build it. So if they can't deliver on the thing you promised, you look bad and everybody hates everybody now. And so your relationship starts to get affected. So trust gets eroded. And on the flip side of that, knowing what the customers are saying, good or bad, doesn't matter. Share the email, share the recording, like talk about it. It's huge because then they know what to do about it and they can help you. We've been talking for a while. We're almost at the end, I promise. Here's the resources that I mentioned. So the mom test book. I like Microcom SaaS Launchpad course. It takes the concepts in the book and expands on them to what does it take to build an actual startup. Not into a giant company, but how do you launch an actual startup? There is lessons, there is handouts, practices, like marketing stuff, all kinds of things around there. It's not cheap. The book, there's a book that was written by the same folks. It's about, I forget, it's like $20 maybe, but the course is like 300 or 400. I forget what the price is right now. And then these are some of the tools I mentioned. This week, if you're paying for Claude, I think this week Claude made co-work available to pro plans, not just max plans. So the $20 a month plans. If you haven't tried it, highly recommend using it and trying it. It's the equivalent of Claude Code without having to use Claude Code. So these are some of the things. Go experiment, go try stuff. Spending a few hours on this pays back hugely. The ROI is ridiculous, actually, on the amount of information you get and how much quickly you can apply it. So in closing, you don't need a CTO. You need to validate the problem first. Cannot stress this last point enough. That's why it's in bold. You're the subject matter expert. That is an incredibly unfair advantage for you. How many technologists are starting health tech companies right now? How many of those technologists have experience in healthcare? Right? Like, you know the healthcare problems, you live them, you see them every day, you know them viscerally. The tech bros don't. Like, use that to your advantage. By understanding a little bit more where you're going, how you're going to get there, having that clarity makes it easier to communicate and ask for the thing that you actually need. So ahead.
Nice. Misha, that was super solid. Thank you for, I think, creating a pretty good foundational understanding of, basically, I think there was one of the sentence that, like, the CTO job is not to build something, right? Like, you tell me all the time what not to build, and we spend a lot of time talking, which sometimes feels like not productive because we could have created something to look at, but it's ultimately the right thing to do because you're not just like spinning wheels. So I've learned to appreciate that a bunch. So now let's open it up to people who are still sticking around to just do any open FAQs or AMAs. Everyone's level of familiarity with programming or is different, and that's totally fine. So if you're gonna ask a question, give a little bit more context. And I think if you don't have a question, maybe reflect on something that you feel like resonated or didn't make sense or that you disagreed with, because this is an N of 1 too.
Hey guys, sorry I joined a little bit late. I'll say my code experience is limited. I did learn a little bit of Python some years ago, but I've been vibe coding quite a bit lately, trying to build a platform for a project. And I've had kind of maybe not the best experiences with the CTO in the past, kind of similar to what you mentioned, Misha, with like the idea of giving equity and then they found something else that was like better and actually paid for their food and dinners and stuff. So it made sense at the time to kind of close up shop. But now with like the tools at our fingertips, we can create whole systems to solve problems, at least prototypes. I'm curious, that book that you recommended at the end there, is that something that's going to help guide taking a product from just a vibe code to like customer acquisition? Like, does it get into those nitty gritty pieces, or is it strictly like on the software as a service piece?
So the mom test book is the Bible for customer discovery.
Cool.
If you want to validate, can I make money off of my idea?
Yeah.
That's the book. So it's before you start writing your code. He goes into quite a bit about don't code. Like basically the message that I'm giving him today. But I've started plenty of companies before reading the book, and then I started excuse me, after reading the book, I had a lot better batting average, if you will. Like I didn't go as far down rabbit holes and investing a lot of time and energy on something that turns out to be a dud.
That's the book I need to read.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So Kareem, do you want to share what you're building? Because I think it's pretty cool. I've seen some prototypes. This was months ago, though. So.
Oh yeah, it's been a while since I've shown you anything, but yeah, I mean, I'm not in front of a computer. But if you want to pull it up, whoever's controlling the screen, you can go to resilearn.com, like as in resident, resi RESI learn.com, and it's a super basic prototype. But essentially, in family medicine, we are
try with an I.
Limited as program RESI learn.com.
But just somewhere.
And you can click demo on the right there. Essentially, in family medicine, we're limited as program directors. I'm in academic family medicine, and we don't get a whole lot of data on how residents are doing until they take this annual exam, and then we get data like 3 months later. And we're basically gauged on this exam to get them to pass their boards. I'm trying to gamify residency. I have to prove that they're competent in things, and I'm trying to build a tool to let residents get points, for logging procedures and get points for doing the competency things that I need to log anyway, and have them show each other up in like some sort of like social stream. I want everyone to say, oh, Paulius did a endometrial biopsy today, shoot, and he got 200 points. Like I need to do that too. And that kind of gamification of residency. I don't think anyone's doing it, and I think people are still like, what in the world are you thinking, when I kind of pitch it, especially like older program directors who like have no idea what these concepts are, like gamification or just like a social stream of people's like I don't know if any of you all like, and lots of things. Like I can give you a high five for like just like what you did, like, hey, good job, Misha, good job, whoever, so that's what I'm trying to build. And these are competencies that are vetted by the ABFM, the American Board of Family Medicine, that really no one has a tool yet for how to show competency. It's just you need the program's director's signature saying, yeah, so and so is good on these things, and they can take their board exam. But there isn't really anything to connect the dots for folks. So that's what I'm building.
That's really cool, man. Kareem, do you know, Misha, I can ask you to go to mededgamer.org. So this is a group that I co-founded when I was in med school, and they carry the torch, and so it's a game-based like educational group, and there's a couple main people. One, Teresa Chan, is in Canada, and they're board games, and the other one is Mike Simini on the West Coast. But they basically talk about game-based learning. I think you should talk to them, because I think you'll geek out. Even though you're not a board game, I think you'll get along with those folks. Yeah.
I'm not a board game yet, but yeah, that's a cool. I'll check them out. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, this was cool. All right, so does someone? I guess you guys came here for a reason, right? Like this is everyone. I think has something to contribute. So I'd love to learn. Okay, Bjorn put something in there.
It's just a
comment. Yeah,
a comment. But I guess I can just express maybe why I came.
Yeah,
I've been a one-time founder with a technical co-founder, working on a new idea, or actually a couple of ideas. And I I just think it's difficult to find a good technical person to work with, and from many different perspectives too. There's the perspective of, I want someone who has the right attitude. I want someone who has some basic understanding of the types of problems or have their own experience of that, so that they can truly engage in like the problem solving, I guess. But then there's that conundrum that you described, which is that maybe financial part of it. When you're very early, there's very little financial gain. It's a long-term thing, and just find it really challenging to navigate, because I've been approached by I don't know how many fractional CTOs on LinkedIn, and I take a meeting, and I pretty quickly sense that it's a business model, not someone looking for like with a deep passion for a specific. Yeah, so maybe that's a question actually, is people who are fractional CTOs as for a living, like, what do you think about that, Misha?
I mean, there's lots of fractional CX something, right? They serve a need. Sometimes you need advice. The catch is, what do you need, like, when you hiring somebody? It's like, I offer fractional CTO services too. Like, it's not my main thing. It's like, how do I feed myself while we get this partner startup off the ground with Polyus, right?
Yeah.
But
no grudge.
Right. But how do you, like, as a fractional CTO, for example, if I'm coming in, I probably have multiple clients that I'm trying to balance. I can't code. That's not what they're offering, because to really code, you need to devote several hours every day to be in the problem space, understand and build a relationship, and also build the context of it. And to do it as a startup, at the early stage startup, like, it's what you said. Like, you have to have a passion for the problem. You have to click as co-founders. There's a reason it's being equated to being married, right? And finding a co-founder is the equivalent of finding a significant other, right? So it's, how do you find a significant other? Most online dating sites fail. You can, like, they keep publishing the numbers every year. And the same is true for co-founder matching services. The success is very, very small. And so the fractional side to me is more of, somebody's coming in and offering you strategic advice, or is there, like, they're the expert and you want specific questions answered? Sure. That makes sense.
Like a contractor.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like,
long-term contractor. Yeah.
Right. You need to run electrical wires through your house. You're not doing it yourself. You're not hiring just somebody. You're hiring a licensed electrician. That's the reality, because they have the expertise. The thing with, like, oh, I need a technical co-founder. Again, I know that you're further along and you kind of proved out your problem, because we've had conversations about it. But where success attracts people by nature, you can sometimes hire people. So how can you, if you're struggling, so as an example, I live in a small town in Oregon. If I was trying to find a co-founder, it would be impossible here, because just the pool of people isn't big enough, right? I'd have to be in a tech hub in order to go to the events, in order to meet enough people to see if there's a match with anybody, and then to do some trial runs with folks. Can you make enough progress if you're not in one of those cities, or you're not visiting those cities regularly, with what you have, to where you generate enough income to make it worthwhile to that person, right? Where the salary and the equity now make enough sense. Oh, and by the way, this thing is growing. We have customers. All of a sudden, I'm not taking a flyer on somebody that I do not know very well. I'm joining a business. And yeah, it's more of an employee relationship, but there's employee relationships and there's employee relationships. So you can play with that and build a relationship that makes sense for you. Not really answering your question directly, kind of a bit roundabout, but hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, I think so. And it's actually where I've kind of landed myself, is make as much progress as possible while keeping some contacts warm, and then paying people a little bit of money to do some work. Yeah.
And as long as you know what done looks like for you, Like you have specific goals you're trying to accomplish. You have a well-defined problem. It's a lot easier to hire people because then you get better estimates. You get better cost management because they also know that, oh, I'm going to hope to deliver this thing. You're not going to come in and completely change it around. And so now I have to pad my estimates, or I have to build it not on like a project-based fee, but I have to do hourly fees. So like you have different controls using some of those incentive structures.
And I would just add, from what I've observed, is, my guess is many people here are somewhat kind of in the position of like, should I get a fractional CTO? And I've seen like what money well spent would be: pay someone like $1,000 retainer per month, and you get one call a week with them for an hour or something like that. It's on the lower end because some of these individuals could charge way more, but like generally that's like, $1,000 is not a lot, but you're going to learn basically the hour that you would spend with that person. It's like they'll tell you what prompts to use for the next week. Like these are the areas that you're going to want to, if you're going to be vibe coding, like this is how you're going to want to direct your attention, and this is what you want to research and watch out for. I mean, it's almost like having like a tutor that is like more professional, basically, right? I don't know, Misha, if like this is kind of how I'm seeing it from the outside. And if you do that for like 3 months, you can probably get super, super far. And like maybe along the way, that person will be like, oh my gosh, what you're building is like actually pretty amazing. Like, let me bat for you, either join you, or can I find someone in my network who's really good at fit? And they actually know pretty intimately because they've been helping you, weeks on end.
Yeah. I haven't seen a fractional CTO as a matchmaking service, but now you're making me think about it, Paulius.
Yeah. Yeah, you basically get to date for a little bit.
Yeah.
You're like, this is the better long-term date.
Yeah, exactly. That's knowing what you need is the critical piece. The rest you have better conversations at the end of the day. And that education piece that Paulius was talking about, like that's, if a good fractional CX, whatever, they're teaching as much as they're helping, as much as they're giving advice. That advice doesn't just come as like, do this thing. It's, well, here's 3 options. Option A is this, and here's the trade-offs, and here's how it'll affect you, I think. Option B, option C. You gotta have those conversations. You get educated. Software engineering is not that complex. I think medicine is a heck of a lot harder. Medicine is unbounded, multidimensional, finite problem space. Software engineering is highly finite. There's only a few things that you learn. Everything else matters if you work for Google at that scale. And even there, it doesn't matter anymore. Right? But if you want to build technologically, you want to build the equivalent of Google, yeah, you need PhDs and whatnot. But if I can go to a coding school for 6 months, come out and build websites that work, and I've worked with quite a few folks whose backgrounds are in liberal arts, English majors, philosophy, music, etc. They went to these boot camps, they come out, they're effective. They're not senior, right? But you don't need that right now. So if you can partner with some of those folks, you're going to get potentially somebody with emotional maturity, assuming you can interview for that, et cetera, but you can get somebody who's an adult, emotionally mature person that knows how to work with others, whose brain is not developing anymore, right? And they know just enough technology, and just enough technology for where you are. If you have 100 users, it's fine. Right? Give you an idea. If I was building your basic mobile app, even using traditional LLMs, I'm not hosting any LLMs, I'm not training anything. I'm using Gemini, ChatGPT, whatever, Claude. For early stage companies, you can run it on a Raspberry Pi if you wanted to. You don't have enough data to matter. Like, none of this is hard. So you don't need to complicate it. You don't need to build for 1 million concurrent users per second type of scenario. And folks who come out of these boot camps are trained well enough to solve the kind of problems that most of you would be solving. You just have to know how to manage and help them grow if they're earlier in their career.
Sweet. Okay, this has been really good. I'm going to stop the recording. We will maybe take